What's up? It's your boy Carcino here, and it's been a minute since I dropped a video. I've been getting caught up on some rest, but let's get into it. Many of you guys didn't know that Suge Knight was always an innovative thinking businessman. And since the Source Award incident, and before it, he knew he had a problem. And the problem that he had was the fact that many people on the East Coast didn't like Death Row Records. And to try to adjust or basically, try to understand what the East Coast wanted to, because he want to rule both sides. He ain't trying to say, you get this, you got the East, I got the West. Nah, he wasn't like that. Suge wanted it all. Period. And it's not like people on the East Coast didn't buy the records. Who didn't like Dre Day and all that? But on the East Coast, they was like, man, F that. Snoop can't rap. I mean, they was really on that. So a lot of that didn't get play over there. So he was trying to change the narrative. And he was like, man, forget trying to change the narrative with a West Coast artist. He sat down with Ice-T. Who else? There was some other people there, like real people that's in the mix. And I'm not sure, but I believe Eric B was probably in that circle as well. They had a meeting. Like just talking about what's the narrative, what's the way to go, and about this whole situation, and trying to appeal and talking to some of the people from the East Coast, and they was talking about talking to some of the fans and people and how they thought they did. Somebody had a camcorder and recorded some of the fans to get reaction to what they think of West Coast artists. And the guy was like, well, why don't you like West Coast music? And basically the messages were coming back like, we don't know nothing about what they talking about, man. Dude, like, I ain't never left New York. I don't want to leave New York. I don't care about what's going on over there. And it was all built up off their own issues. So they sitting back like, wow. And all of a sudden, I got a message. That's why I kind of slowed up a little bit. So all of a sudden, they're looking at the impact, and the guy was like, man. One guy was like, oh, I love both sides. I love the music. And then they love to ask people what they do for a living. And most people be like, look, I don't want to talk about what I do for a living. Most of them didn't have jobs. So most of them was in the streets. But Suge was like, man, listen, the streets, I'm from the streets. The streets, they gonna dictate the market. Even though it don't matter if they got no jobs. Because everybody's like, man, Suge don't care about what the streets talking about. They don't buy records. The streets do buy records. See, if the streets don't say it's popular, you know what that lame gonna do? That lame dude ain't gonna go buy that record. You know why? Because the streets ain't playing it. Now, if the streets is playing it, then everybody gonna be like, look, alright, the streets is playing. This is what I'm talking about. I gotta get it, because that's popular. Why you think these rappers, they dress like the drug dealers? See, all the drug dealers, they got the big gold chain, they got the hats. And what the rapper want to do, he want to look like the drug dealer. He want to get the big gold chain, bro, because that's what's popping in the streets. So we focus on the streets. Death Row's about the streets. So when Suge came out with that, he made sense. See, people don't give Suge his credit. He was very smart. He wasn't stupid. You can't just get Dr. Dre and have them come on over to Death Row and take Dre over there with you and start your own thing without being smart. You don't get to sit down with Jimmy Iovine and be able to, talk business with him about how to structure certain things without being smart and having some smarts and wits about yourself. To Doc and Dre, which was the core of Ruthless Records with him. So that explained to you what happened there. Now, of course, that's where the tectonic plate shifted, because Suge realized, to be with the East Coast, I'm going to need somebody really East Coast connected. Somebody like an Ice-T. But he realized getting Ice-T ain't going to work. That ain't going to work for him. He got a good thing he doing now. T doing his own thing. He was on some positive, uniting the gangs and all that stuff back then. He's acting. He ain't the guy to get that done. He needs somebody that's from the streets right now that can get that done, or somebody from the East Coast they would respect. He wanted to sign Rakim. So he talked to Eric B. Eric B. didn't think that would be a very good idea for them to bring Rakim over, from what I was told. That Eric B. was like, nah, you and Ra. I mean, Ra is like hard, hard to work with. Not that the raps wouldn't be there, nothing like that. Like, business wise, it wouldn't make that kind of sense to where, something like that would be feasible. So the works went in to make Death Row East. So when they made Death Row East, they were going to have a Death Row but on the east side. So that way, all the East Coast artists that they had was going to be on Death Row East. And they was going to try to plant their flag on the East Coast, have Eric B. be the face of it out there in the East Coast, and get guys under his, thing. But Eric B. already tanked with his record label and stuff. So, that's a whole different story. Now, when you see other entities where Tupac was the face of Death Row East, Tupac was brought in. Pac was brought to be the West Coast, to bring the West Coast back to the prominence and keep the mantle going. And that's what he did to the fullest with California Love. But have you noticed there's an East Coast version and there's a West Coast version? The West Coast version is done differently than the East Coast version. It's two versions, two videos. The East Coast version is more the keys and the drums to the same beat, but it's still California Love, but it's got the East Coast beat, and it's more like Road Warriors and all that. So the other version is Cali style, kicking it back, lounging, partying, with the hats on. So there were two versions, because Tupac was basically loved on both sides. So while Suge had this on the burner, he was gonna bring some East Coast artists over, and this spilled into an East Coast, West Coast, war. To diffuse that, they were gonna have Death Row East, and with Death Row East, that's where the artist was gonna go. Now, Tupac was going to be brought in to spearhead Death Row East and help promote it, but he wanted to do his own thing. So they were talking about changing the whole imprint of Death Row East into something that Tupac would be feasible with. Now, I don't know if they changed the title from Death Row East to Machiavelli Records, but Pac always wanted his own thing. Suge sat him down, promised him he was going to give him the videos he wanted. All his plans that he wanted to do, Suge was willing to do with him. He just don't want Pac leaving. No, stay here. We could do all that right here. Everything you talking about you want to get out, we going to do right here. And that's what happened. So there was times Pac was unhappy there. There's going to be times you unhappy at your job. You might have a bad day. The boss might tick you off. Some things might not have been right. So yeah, when people like, man, Pac was in the studio, man, he was just real mad that day. See, he wanted to leave. Everybody gonna say they want to leave at one point when they're unhappy. How many times you said you wanted to leave your job and you still there another 2, 3, 4 years and still going? So at one point in time, at a moment in time, you might have felt like you wanted to leave. But when somebody do something right by you, you go, all right, well, cool. All right, now we cool. That we all could relate to that. So, and that's it. So hopefully this clears up a lot of confusion of what people may have because of these crazy television shows. They keep dramatizing all this stuff. So, on that note, I'm out.